Welcome to episode 12 of the Imperial Tides podcast. I'm your host, Holden, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Simone. How are you doing today, Simone?
Good.
We just
Doing
got...
good.
Good. It's good to hear. We just got finished watching the... I forgot what the year was, but we just got finished watching a film adaptation of Julius Caesar. I believe it was 1970. The 1970 film adaptation of Julius Caesar with... that famous actor Charles Heston, or I forgot what his name is, but anyway. So to give you guys a bit of a brief summary, Julius Caesar is a play, of course, based on the famous Roman Emperor Julius Caesar, and within the context of the play, Julius Caesar is he's just getting back from Pompeii. He seems to be some sort of warmonger. And there's this political scheme, this plan to kill him, to assassinate him, and this scheme is being conducted by some of his closest political allies, including the Brutus, who's like his best friend, and then Cassius, who's another person that he has a lot of respect for, that he trusts deeply, among others. And so what ends up happening is they stab him to death in the middle of a Senate hearing, and he dies. And another person, Mark Antony, comes in, and he discovers the body, and he decides to remain loyal to Caesar even after he's dead, unlike the others who have sort of washed their hands of him and killed him because they considered him to be they apparently considered him to be a tyrant and felt they needed to kill him in order to preserve the purity, the dignity, I guess, of the Republic. But Mark Antony doesn't see it that way, and so what ends up happening is Brutus gives a speech about this, explaining why he and the others killed Julius Caesar to the common people of Rome, to the multitude, and allows Mark Antony to follow up his speech. But when Mark Antony does, it splits opinions, and the crowd kind of agrees with... They agree with Brutus at first, but then when Mark Antony shows up, they agree with him. And Brutus he appeals to the common people's rationality, whereas Mark Antony appeals to their emotions. So it's this matter of let's say logos versus pathos, and so then what ends up happening after that is a civil war breaks out, and Brutus, all this time, Brutus and Cassius and the others, they have to run away because the war is starting, so they have to get out of the city, and they have to set up military camps kind of out in the country and everything. And during all of this, Brutus has these repeated visits, I guess, or visions of the ghost of Caesar's ghost, right? Holy Caesar's ghost and all that, and in the end, Brutus and Cassius end up killing themselves at different times when they realize that they've lost the war. They realize defeat, and they decide to go out in the most noble way possible, according to their customs, of course, the customs of the Romans and everything. So they have they have their soldiers run their blades through them, and they die. And the whole thing ends with Mark Antony finding the corpse of Brutus and paying it respect, despite him being his enemy. And their deaths, of course, symbolically and figuratively and literally mark the end of the true Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. And a fun fact, by the way, this is something that I noticed. Julius Caesar actually has the same initials as Jesus Christ. Their names are both JC. And it's interesting that both of them do end up getting betrayed in their particular stories, right? Jesus gets sold out to the Romans by Judas, who was his, one of his apostles, one of the people he trusted the most, and Caesar gets, of course, stabbed by Brutus, and so there is that interesting similarity between the two of them. But now let me ask you this, Simone. What would you rate this particular adaptation out of 10, and why?
I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I like the production and the technical aspects of this one, but it lacks more about it didn't focus more on Caesar's characters. It just shows few scenes about Caesar. I want to see more about the character of Caesar, or what's the reason behind why his friends betray him. I guess that most of the times it's just focus on his friends trying to putting making some conspiracy or planning for assassination of Caesar. I'm looking for more aspects about Caesar.
Charlton Heston, by the way, famous American actor, plays Mark Antony in this film, and it's the 1970 British independent adaptation of Julius Caesar. And yeah, I would agree. It also has Diana Rigg and what's his name? Good old Richard Johnson, who were in I believe they were both in the one we saw, the adaptation we saw of a Midsummer Night's Dream. I believe they played. Well, the girl played. Who'd she play? She played Celia, and then Richard Johnson played. What's his name? He played the king in that one. I'll try to pull this up. I didn't really anticipate talking about this. Apologize for how scattered this episode's turning out to be already. Diana Rigg played Helena, and Derek Godfrey played Theseus. And Derek Godfrey was, well, I guess he wasn't in this, but it looked like him. But anyway, never mind. I thought it was the same actor, but Diana Rigg is in both, and she's Portia, who is Brutus's wife in this, and she was also Helena in A Midsummer Night's Dream, 1968. And so 2 years after that, she came on and did Julius Caesar. So that's interesting that they use some of the same actors, and I mean, they're pretty good. She's pretty good, so props for that. But if you do a good job, you deserve to be in these films and stuff. But apparently, this adaptation isn't really liked by a lot of people. People have given it negative reviews, and mostly for Jason Robards' performance as Brutus. And the problem, I noticed that too. The problem with this film, the main problem is that Jason Robards, who plays Brutus, who's the second most important character, if not the most important character in the entire play, and subsequently the entire film, he's not a very good actor is the problem. He doesn't have an accent the way everybody else does. His American accent is very very obvious. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and his performance is very wooden too. He kind of just reads his lines like a robot, very monotonous, very emotionless. It's really bad. I don't know why they cast him in such a major role, and I don't know why he didn't even pretend to have an accent, why he didn't do like accent training or something the way actors are supposed to. I don't get what they saw in him other than his physicality. I mean, he has the look, he fits that bill for that kind of older Roman politician or whatever. But other than that, I mean, there was really no reason for him to be in it. He wasn't good. I'm sure you could have picked like a dozen better other actors just that could actually do it and had the accent and could pull it off. I think he really brings the whole thing down. And it's a shame because other than that, it's pretty decent. I mean, there are some scenes where you can tell that the sets are just that the columns and stuff that are supposed to be made out of stone and marble. They're just they're foamy and fake. They're very fake looking. They're very kind of cheap looking. But that makes sense because this is an independent movie. But at the same time, the scale of it is also pretty impressive too. Like they get a lot of extras in for the scenes where you need to have a big crowd, and it feels very theatrical, but in a good way, because after all, the play is a play. It's meant to be on a stage. So it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it as a more a movie than an adaptation of a play, a theatrical work, then you're probably not going to like it very much because the action scenes and stuff that they throw in do feel very, kind of obligatory and pointless and rushed, and there's no reason for them. So I guess in terms of, if you're going to see it as an actual film, it's kind of lackluster. It leaves a lot to be desired. But if you look at it as just maybe perhaps an overbloated or an overblown theatrical production, like a stage play with a budget, then it's actually really good and it's really well put together, and the acting is with the exception of Brutus, the acting is spot on, and that's really what counts the most anyway. So credit where credit's due, and it was, out of all the Shakespeare adaptations we've seen so far, besides well, I would say it's probably the third, the one I enjoyed watching like the most, the third most, I suppose, behind As You Like It and The Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice was the best one that we've seen so far. The most fun we've seen so far. The most fun adaptation. This one, it was good, but it was service. You know, it was only ever going to be serviceable, I think, and so that's why I have no choice but to give it really like an 8.5 or an 8.75 out of 10. I'll go with an 8.5 for now. Maybe even an 8, honestly. Yeah, an 8. It gets a B. It gets a B, so I would give it an 8 out of 10 because there's just a lot that it leaves to be desired. But now let me ask you this, Simone. What would you rate the original play and why?
I guess I rate the original play is 8, I guess. Maybe because it's more on political thing. He talks more about on political aspects rather than it's not focused on the character itself. I guess that it's different from the other plays that we've seen so far. That is more focused on the character developments or what they're trying to the underlying message of the character. This one also has the underlying message of the character about why they act that way or why they choose to. We can get a lot of lessons or tons of insights about it, but it's more focused on political issues by the time that it was written. So that's why I'll give it an 8. So I'm looking for. I thought that this one would be given that its title is Julius Caesar. I thought it would be similar to Hamlet or Macbeth, but this one it's quite similar, but we can see that it's quite far from those two. And then this one is all it's focused on political aspects.
Yeah, exactly. I think it focuses on a different angle of similar subject matter, whereas like something like Macbeth focuses more on like the character himself and the more introspective aspect of his his suffering through just the guilt of what he's done in order to get the kingship. In Macbeth, it doesn't really matter. The fact that he's a king is kind of irrelevant, honestly. It's so secondary. It's pushed to the side to focus more on the psychological hell that he's kind of stewed in from start to finish in that one, and then in something like I guess. Well, I mean, even in something like Richard II, for example, you get a lot more emphasis on the character. But in Julius Caesar, the titular character dies like right away. Like we don't really even get to know who he is. We don't really get a sense of who he is. We don't see. He's very ambiguous, and that's the thing about this play that's really interesting. In the Shakespeare canon, I would say it's probably one of the most what we've seen so far anyway. It's probably the most confusing one that we've seen so far. There are a lot of paradoxes in this. There are a lot of contradictions. There are a lot of ambiguities. You can't really tell who's good and who's evil. And I think that might be a testament to how confusing politics are, maybe, perhaps, how it really is just a kind of a world of, there is no good or evil, there's no bad, it's just different people trying to accomplish different things. Everyone just wants power, and they're doing things they're not necessarily power, because I feel like that would be an oversimplification of it. I would say this is an exploration of politics. This is a depiction of politics as just a playing field in which people all have there's no good and there's no evil necessarily. Morality doesn't seem to really play a factor into it. It's mostly individual morality, subjective morality. The people aren't really, none of these people, none of these individual politicians are operating under the same banner of, like, let's say, universally accepted morality or morals. There are vague ideals, but they kind of interpret them in different ways. Kind of like how people interpret the law in different ways, or kind of like how people interpret the Bible in different ways. It's the same thing here. The ideals are very vague and far off from what's going on in the actual Senate room and everything, in the actual Senate hall and behind closed doors, I guess, with regard to the everyday politics of things. It's not easy to take a side because no one's clearly good, no one's clearly bad. They're all people, and they've all got their own individual interpretations of how things should be. They've got their own individual visions, They all have a slightly different conception of how the Roman Republic should be, or how Rome should be, whether it should be a republic or an empire, or how you should go about preserving the, let's say, the chastity, I guess, of the purity of the republic, to keep it from becoming some warmongering state hell bent on empire, let's say. And that's why Brutus, anyway, we can't really say much about the others because it's not really clear. From what we can tell, it seems like some of the others just kind of want to kill Caesar because they don't like him, and we don't really know why exactly it is that they don't like him. We don't even know if Caesar's really a tyrant or not, and we'll get into that in a second. But it's just, from what we can tell, Brutus is the only one who has a clear goal in mind, and he seems to be, or not necessarily that they all have goals in mind, but he seems to have he seems to be the most moral out of any of the characters. I think he's the one whose morals we understand the most. His vision is the one that is most definite to us, the viewer, because from what we can tell, it seems as though he wants to, he really does care about preserving the dignity of the Roman Republic and restoring it back to its former glory prior to Caesar's rule, because it seems as if Caesar, as general and whatnot, he's doing a very poor job. He's kind of, again, he's turning it into this warmongering state that it isn't supposed to be. And we get very little evidence for this. All we really know about how Caesar rules, there are two things. And they're both very ambiguous, and nothing's clear. Nothing's set in stone in this play, and that's what makes it kind of difficult to talk about. And why is it so ambiguous? Well, that could be for a number of reasons. My theory on this is that Shakespeare might have wanted to make this adaptable to the stage, because after all, these are plays. They are dramatic works, but they're plays first and foremost. And so maybe he made it ambiguous so that different directors could approach the play with different angles. You could have, for example, you could have a production where Brutus is the good guy, and then you could have another production where Caesar is the good guy. And it's bad that everybody killed him. And Brutus isn't justified in that particular situation. Or you could have one where, no one's good at all, and it's all about how corrupt politics are. It's very adaptable. It's very flexible. It's, you can apply it to different things. It can take on many different shapes and forms, even more so than some of the other plays where, you have things that are kind of definite, like things that you probably shouldn't change too much because they're so fundamental to the play itself. But this one, with this particular play, I think it's very mutable. It's got this mutability to it that the others don't necessarily have, or at least it has that more so than the others, to a greater degree, to a larger extent, perhaps. And then also what sets it apart from, especially a lot of the tragedies, is that it's very political, and so because of that, we kind of have to approach it here from a broader lens. And so I guess the best way to approach this, the most organized way we can go about doing this is just start by asking a few vague political science kind of related questions. And so, Simone, let me ask you this. Well, before we get into that, sorry, would you recommend people to watch this particular adaptation, the 1970 film version of Julius Caesar?
Yeah, I think I can recommend this one, but maybe just like what we did with this one doesn't give us a real reason for why did the character did certain things, or certain there sort to certain sort of action. So maybe when you watch this one, I guess maybe I think the other plays I think the other plays are also portrayed this way, or the way that Shakespeare written this play is supposed to be portrayed that way. That it depends upon the director, or how they can adapt this one. Unless that you say that we can make Brutus as a good character, or maybe Caesar. It depends upon the adaptation. So maybe this one can give you an idea of what is it all about. I guess the flow of the story. But to get into more about the what is this the all about the politics. This one it can give us a little idea, but about the political science, or what is it all about the politics. But you need to you need to do some research to fully get into this one. So I can recommend this one, but probably I'll just recommend them to while after they see this film or this adaptation. I think they should do what we have done. I guess to do some research to fully get into this one. I guess that even other adaptation also needs to you also need to do some research to fully get this play.
Yeah. I don't think it really covers everything within the actual adaptation itself, and I would agree with that. Almost, spot on. Actually, I think it's easy to watch. So if you're trying to get into Shakespeare, I would say make this like your third or fourth Shakespeare movie. If you're just starting out, it's very easy to watch. It's accessible, but there are a few things about it that again it's probably gonna bug you. The whole Brutus, the actor for Brutus, Jason Robards, his American accent and the fact that he reads his lines so monotonously. That kind of it doesn't ruin the movie necessarily, but it does bring it down a bit. It pulls you out of it. Otherwise, it's very good. But again, it's like an overbloated theatrical production. So don't come into it thinking that it's going to be like it's not a very movie. It's more like a play. So just think about that. Bear that in mind before you come into it. Or otherwise, you might come into it with the wrong kind of expectations to be disappointed. But don't let that ruin your experience. Give it a fair shot, but just think about it a certain way. Think of it as more of a really expensive stage play than as a movie itself, because it is an independent film and it's free on YouTube to watch at least now. So take advantage of that and just give it a shot, and then read about it afterwards. And if you like it enough, if you like the story and everything enough, then go out and buy maybe a better version, like the one with Marlon Brando, for example, or just anything really. Any of the other ones. There are tons of Shakespearean adaptations, but then also a ton of ones for Caesar as well. I don't know personally which one's the best one, but I would assume that it's that the Marlon Brando one is a good one, at least anyway. And I'm pretty sure that one is notable and for good reason, I'm assuming. But again, I don't want to talk about things that I don't know too much about anyway. But speaking of which, again, this play is really ambiguous, so it's going to be a bit tough to get into this one. I don't know if we're going to be able to come up with any clear, resolute, definite answers by the end of this, because again, it doesn't seem like Shakespeare even has those within the actual core text itself. So this is all just really this play is more of a conversation piece than anything else. So it'll lead to a good discussion, but I don't know if it's going to be necessarily a productive one in the same sense that the other ones are or were, because those had more definite answers. Shakespeare was trying to make at least we see it as a definite point, whereas with this one, again, a lot of it's just up in the air, so it really could just be anything. So we'll play around with positions a bit. We might get into a bit more of a debate with this one, because that's kind of, I feel like that would be more conducive to getting something out of it, to getting more out of it anyway. We'll definitely get something out of it, but we want to get as much as we possibly can out of it. So let me start off the discussion here, Simone, with a bit of a broad, sweeping question. How would you personally define corruption in politics?
I will. It's just maybe for me, I guess corruption is just the selfishness about the letting your own desires control controls you or manifest the decisions that you are making at basing the decisions that you're going to make for the sake of your own desires to fulfill what you wanted for the sake of that in the end that you will benefit from it, or something that corrupt or so corrupt that it is against the moral values that you need to as a politician or as a leader.
So you think corruption comes from putting your individual needs or goals or whatever over the needs and the goals of the people, and using the position to do what you want to do as opposed to what the people perhaps voted you, elected you into office to do, or well, I guess if we're going to go further back to like the days of emperors and kings and queens and whatnot, what the divine see that it's complicated, but what's expected of you as a leader, let's just say, because people even back then people wanted good leaders. You know, they wanted good, just, competent leaders who did what was best for the nation and what was best for the people, even if it didn't always seem obvious. And but the idea was that they were a good leader who had good intentions and had the right kind of thing in mind, who could do a good job, right? So you're saying that political corruption mostly comes from occurs when a politician, or when a leader allows their individual needs or aims or goals or desires to supersede the needs of the people, or the job, basically the tenets of the office, let's say.
Yeah, that's what how I see it. For example, here in the Philippines, corruption is everywhere. That you can see that they what they're doing is for their own sake. That it's no longer for the sake of their constituents. That you can see that all the projects that they are doing, or each step that they are taking, is only for the sake of their own being, for to get rich or whatever they decide that they wanted to. So it's more on selfishness, I guess, the corruption, that letting your own desires manifest, or something that you only do things just to for the sake of your own benefit, I guess. But also we can say that corruption can also comes from the people itself. For example, the people wanted things that are wrong, or something that is morally wrong. So I guess that they've been accustomed to this kind of belief that the people are hinders the government to do the right thing. I guess that they're focusing more on the subjective aspects. For example, that they wanted something that for these selfish reasons, I guess that the people, but they can be that way, I guess that because the people also demanded, they are the one who demands what the government needs to sustain, so they can also be the source of corruption, I guess. But in this most situation, I guess that corruption comes from the selfishness of the leader, or something that when you let your own desires manifest you, or something that when you only do your job, or you're not doing your job at all, or you're just doing things for your own sake, or for yeah, or you're being selfish at all.
And so, but where exactly do you think this temptation towards corruption comes from? Is it a power thing? Is it a biological? Is it another aspect of our biological makeup? Do you think this need to dominate, this need for power over other people?
Yeah, we can say that it's more on a biological sense, because in the first place, we as a human beings, for example, when we come to this world, we don't have any. You can say that when you're rich or something, but I guess in today's reality, that we can only get this power when you become a politician or something. But yeah, when I guess that people, the human beings, lack uh, we don't have control of things. I guess that, for example, the power that we can get from when we become a politician or something, or a leader, it's in the reality that we don't have control through these things. So most of the times that we don't have control to this, and it can corrupt us as an individual, that we don't have control to this one, and then we just let things happen, or we just let these things corrupt us.
Now, let me ask you and that's very true. But let me ask you a two-part question here. First part, how can a politician who might be tempted to be corrupt, I suppose, to become corrupt and just kind of use the office for their own personal desires or goals or needs or whatever, how do they prevent themselves from being tempted by corruption? How do they prevent themselves from becoming corruptible? How do you think they would go about doing that?
I guess when you become a politician or something, you gain something of power. Corruption is already there. It's just a matter of choice that if you're going to give it into that. But yeah, it's still a decision for you. But sometimes it's hard to resist these things because sometimes you're lacking to where you're given in a situation that you don't have a choice, but it's still given that you have the power or authority to above things, you still have the choice, I guess. Maybe you should be considerate about uh, this is a really tough question, I guess. I don't know how could I answer this one, but maybe you should be conscious enough, or what should you should you should have your own stand about things. You should, for example, that you will only dwell on the that you will only focus on the betterment of the people. You should just stand there. You have your own stand, or you have your own hold on things that, for example, you will only focus on things that will make for the betterment of your constituents. So I guess you should only consider that matter. So even though there are some temptation, you should focus only on the things that you need to do. You shouldn't give into this one, or maybe you should make a defense mechanism to these temptations.
Yeah, I would say probably that famous saying, that goes. I think that perfectly applies here. Would be keep your friends close and your enemies closer, especially in politics. I think you would, a politician who wants to avoid not only corrupting themselves, but also preventing corruption within politics. And that was the other part of the question I was going to ask you is, how does a good politician fight the corrupt politicians? Well, we'll get into that in a second. I was just going to say that, I think maybe the best solution for somebody like that, if you want to do good within the political sphere and you want to minimize, at least ameliorate, maybe not fully prevent, but at least ameliorate, lessen the impact of the negative influence of corruption in politics. The best way to do that would be to try to understand the where the corruption's coming from, to get a feel for who's in it, what shape it looks like, what form it's taking, I suppose, and how to avoid it as well. And this is it's really tough, but it's like, which voices do I, what people do I trust? Which voices do I listen to? I guess what paperwork do I, fill out? What kind of job, what promotion do I want to try to work towards? Is it worth getting the promotion? Is it worth cutting a deal with somebody else to get, into this different office or whatever, to get a step up in the in the hierarchy? How much am I willing to sacrifice in order to stay true to my ideals? Is it am I here? What am I really here for? Too? Am I here to actually make a difference, or do I just want to make money, or did I just want the fame, the pats on the back? You really got to consider all of this stuff. You got to introspection. You got to introspect every single day, even when you're a politician and you're in the midst of this. Really, you got a busy schedule. From sun up to sundown. You still got to take time to meditate on things and to really meditate, not just superficially meditate. You can't just get a purple pillow, put it on the floor in your office, and just put on some yoga, some meditation music, and that's it, and you're just listening to Buddhist chanting and stuff. That's not enough. You got to actually think about these things too while in the process of that. That's the whole point of that. You're using that time to really reflect on yourself and why you're there, and who you are, and why you do the things you do. These things are universal. They can be applied to anybody, and I think in this particular case, the chaos of politics is very pervasive, and it can blind and deafen people to who they really are and why they're even there. And I think that's the problem. I think a lot of people they start out good, but then over time, over the years, they get a little cynical. They get soured to the realities of it because they just realize that it's not really what they wanted it to be. They came in very idealistic, very naive, to politics. The good ones anyway, the just one. Let's just say a lot of people, a lot of these politicians, they want to make a genuine difference, but then they come in, they realize how hard it is. They realize how the game really works. It's not about what's right or wrong. It's about convincing people to do what you want them to do. And so it's all about power, and it's not about morality. It's about power. It's about influence. It's about saying things in a way that, saying and doing what will attract the most people in order to make the most headway. That's all it is. It's about just trying to convince a bunch of people who may not be good or bad or whatever, just trying to convince them that what you're saying is right, or not necessarily right, but just that it's about, and a lot of it is showmanship, really, and that's kind of the depressing thing about it, and that's what makes a lot of people cynical, is the fact that it really is showmanship. It's performance. It's giving a speech, just like with Brutus and Mark Antony, when they're both addressing the people, the multitude, the common people, when they're on the steps of the Senate, I believe that was the senatorial hall. They're outside of it, and Brutus is trying to appeal to their logos, their rationality, and Mark Antony's trying to appeal to their emotions by making them feel bad for the recently deceased Julius Caesar. But if you notice, both of them are being very manipulative to the people. And maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe they think the ends justify the means. They want to get their particular political vision, realized, or whatever. They want to get their agenda in. But that's what's happening. It's not about morals. It's about power and influence. They're both performing. They're both and in more than one sense too. I mean, these are actors acting as, but put that aside for a moment and just focus on the political aspect of it. The fact that they're there, they're just trying to convince the audience that their side is correct, that their position is the right one. And it seems like that the people at the time, they're not educated enough to really, educated or informed enough to really question any of this stuff. They kind of just go with whoever's the better speaker, the better performer. And that's still, to a certain extent, that's always going to be true, I believe. It's just a human thing, But it's true now, too. People just kind of listen to whatever, whoever's the more popular candidate. A lot of politics is a popularity contest. Who's the cleanest looking, who speaks the most eloquently, I suppose, or who inspires the most intense emotions within you. Who spurs you into action. Let's say, who's the most convincing out of any of them. That's really what it comes down to. That's a lot of what politics is, and that's kind of what's depressing about it, and it's wrong on a number of levels, but it's kind of just the way it is, because we as human beings, just like every other animal, it's this evolutionary biological thing in us, but we are attracted to dominance, and whoever can dominate in that sense, whoever can conjure up the best image, the most idealized depiction of what a hero or a leader should be, we are attracted to that. We can't help but be attracted to that. We have to resist being attracted to that, And if you don't have the proper training or conditioning or information to know better than to just blindly give into that, you're gonna guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna blindly give into that, And that's the problem. People just aren't educated enough on this kind of thing. You've got this general population out there who just kind of, again, it's a popularity contest for them because they don't really think too critically about it, and that's why the wrong people get elected into office all the time, and that's why everything's so messed up right now, because these people aren't really the best for the job. They're just they're the best at seeming like they're the best for the job, because and that's the problem. A lot of people get turned off by rationality. They genuinely do. They get turned off by nuanced opinions and stuff. Like there's this politician. I don't want to get like political in this, even though this is a political play. I don't want to get I don't want to bring modern contemporary politics into it. But let's just say, for example, there's this woman named Candace Owens who is a conservative, and she's she's black, African American, but she's conservative because you can be that. It's a lot more nuanced than a lot of people give credit for, because I think social media if we're going to get into contemporary politics, just real quick, social media really pushes that. By the way, it makes it it amplifies, it makes it worse because it makes it easy for people to not have to think about the actual information of things. They can kind of just come on and hear somebody, hear like little sound bites and pick whichever side they agree with the most, and then they can have a quote unquote real like definite enemy and a definite good guy and a definite bad guy, and it's just a mess because it obscures the truth, it obscures the facts of the reality, and it's biased, and there's this slant. But anyway, it oversimplifies it to the point where the general population can come on and play politics without actually understanding it or thinking critically about it. And that's what leads to a lot of this misinformation, a lot of these preconceived notions that the cultural consciousness seems to not be in possession of, but be possessed by these days. And that's why there's a lot of animosity. That's why there's all this political and civil unrest. It's because no one can be cordial anymore. No one can have productive discourse. They can't have conversations because you have things like social media that thrive on divisiveness. They thrive on these popularity contests, this very superficial way of looking at politics and current events and everything, because it gets them traffic, and they just want to make money. They want to turn a profit. That's literally all it comes down to. It's a bad mixture of, I wouldn't say necessarily capitalism, but greed and ignorance coming together to make this perfect kind of political, social, cultural hell. And and I think Julius Caesar helps us better understand that a little more. You're tracing this back to the source. You're going back to the Greco-Roman states. That were really where a lot of it was the birthplace of Western civilization. Modern Western civilization as we know it. So it's important to think about this stuff and consider it. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Simone, before we move on to the next question? Hello? Simone? Oh well, it seems like he's out doing something real quick. So I'll keep going. So in terms of Simone, can you hear me?
It's a bit loud earlier, so can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah. I was asking if you had anything to comment on what I was talking about just now. About social media and just connecting this to contemporary politics.
Yeah, we can also say regarding about the mob or the crowd, we can also say that they have also significant or they have also they play a role on how things turns out. I guess that we can also say that it's an aspect that they also tempted Brutus to do the certain actions that he did. We can say that in according to what you said earlier about the speech that they give, and that these people are easy to manipulate. Maybe they easy. For example, when Brutus said his speech, these people agree on Brutus, and then after when Mark Antony gave his speech and these people also agreed, in a minute they just changed their mind. So yeah, we can say that they have a role, I guess, they're easy to manipulate, but I guess that there are some aspects that also affected Brutus to make his decisions, to lean making on his decision to these people. We can connect this especially today, the media, how for example, the media's around here that there's a lot of issues that they need to talk about, because living is too complicated, and there's a lot of tons of issues that they can talk about and every day in the news. But it seems like that for a certain month or for the course of month or a week, they only focus on some big issues that they wanted to control the mind of the people to just focus on this issue and neglect the other important issues. Just how I see it, kaya I no longer watch the news.
Right, yeah, because news media and stuff they want to make money. That's what, at the end of the day, they're just there to make a profit. You can kind of you got to kind of take what they say with a grain of salt, especially these days, because there's so much. There's not really a lot of objectivity in most things. Pretty much everything has a bias or a slant. Um, and whether you agree with one bias over another or whatever, that's up to you. That's your business. But I personally, if anything, I'm biased against bias. I like things that are just objective. I would like objective news covering, and you can't really get that these days. It seems to be really bad. I mean, the corruption in the media and everything is very widespread these days. But also, it's not only that though, because we have to think about this issue from all sides. Another aspect of it, really, what it comes down to is that it's hard to get people to care about complex, nuanced things. You have to reel them in somehow. You have to attract them, especially these days. People have like really short attention spans, and they're just the kind of life in general, globally, generally speaking. Again, it's very good now. It's to the point where in our 21st century mode of life, the average person just doesn't really have the conditioning anymore. They don't really have the patience to sit down and get into the nuance of things. They're attracted, again, and this is just fundamental, this part, but we are attracted to just, I don't know, interesting things. Like, we need to be entertained, and these days we've gotten really used to being entertained. It's not, we're not willing to do the hard work and we've never really been willing to do the hard work. Not always, it's difficult. The hard work is hard for a reason. We call it hard because it is difficult. It's one of, it's not easy to condition yourself to think more critically about things, to be more rational, to kind of look at everything from both sides, and I guess to just explore the issue, whatever issue it is, from every conceivable angle, to the point where you have a clear and definite understanding of it, to listen out, to hear out completely opposing viewpoints, and maybe find a happy medium between the two, but these days, man, it's like, it's all a team sport, and everyone's just, they've really let themselves go. A lot of people have stopped trying at all. They're not even they're not even trying to pretend that they care about these things critically. They treat it like some sort of sport. They do it. They treat politics like football. They got their team and they want their team to win, and that's really all it comes down to. And so a lot of stupid shit happens because it's all arbitrary. It's nonsense. People don't actually care about like what's going on there. It's not a good game to be playing, because it's like the stakes are just they're too real, man. It's everything. This is not a playing field. Politics is not a playing field that people should really, it's not something people should mess with. It's already messed up enough as it is. Even at its best, it's all about power and the acquisition of power, and people trying to take power away from other people. It's already that. It's enough for it to be that. You don't need to heap on all these other complicating factors. But modern life has made it such, and we got to find a way to resolve that. And I don't know exactly what the solution is, and I don't profess to know a hell of a lot about the situation as it stands. I only know what I know. It's it's super complicated. This is something that this is why you have analysts and stuff, and researchers, scientists. You have think tanks. You have and you could argue that those are all corrupt too, to a certain extent. I wouldn't trust anything that's institutionalized. But then again, that's a bias in and of itself. So take my advice on that as a grain of salt. All I ask is that you, the listener, think for yourself. Think for yourself. Think critically. Take the time to self-actualize and all that, and to self-determinate, and to be a rational, individual. Because human beings are rational creatures. We are arguably the only rational creatures. And as far as we know, we are the only rational creatures in the universe. So honor that, do right by that, and make the most of it, because it's a gift. And you only got so much time on this earth. Don't waste it being a moron, I guess, basically. And we've all been morons at one point or another, but just, try to minimize that, I suppose. But how about this, Simone? Does Julius Caesar, or anything you've learned from Julius Caesar so far, does any of that connect to who's your president right now, Rodrigo Duterte or whatever? Do you see any connection between Caesar and Duterte?
No, I don't think at all that we can connect it. The third is I don't know how his minds really go. It's just he don't have any stand about things. He's just for example, he agrees with the U.S. At some points, and then tomorrow he didn't agree with it, or he doesn't have any stance on things or his own opinions, or he doesn't have his own words. I guess it's in the I don't know how could I explain him or describe him. It's just he I don't know, he's so messed up. He's just messing things else around. I don't know why he doesn't have he didn't know what he's doing. For example, his cabinet members are all packed up. They didn't know what they're doing. For example, um the general are the even the official that he gives the reign on the power. For example, the new and the new chief of the police and of the police. It seems like he doesn't know what he's doing. For example, and also the Department of Health secretary. It doesn't seem that he knows. I don't know. I can see him as a doctor at all. He's so dumb. I guess that, for example, in the last time, for example, the new COVID variants, he just say that we shouldn't put any travel restriction. We just need to action when this virus already comes. So I don't know. It's a mess up. I guess that I think Julius Caesar is better than him, or I don't know how can I express the authority. I don't. He doesn't have any say or much things, or we can see any significance on his character. It's just too passive or impulsive or something that uh when just I mean, with just any of his cabinet members tell him, he just agree with it. He doesn't have his own opinion. He does have his own opinion, but it changes every day,
So he's inconsistent,
all the
and
time.
he's inconsistent and like irresolute, and he listens to his cabinet members too much. Doesn't that kind of remind you of like Richard II?
Um, he listened to his cabinet member, but most of the times, I guess it's his own definition on things, or his own says regarding things that he's too subjective, or he's just too selfish that there are things that his cabinet members are telling him that there are some knowledgeable about them, but most of the times he listens on the dumb ones, or I think that he just rely on his own views on things. He just chooses the most backup ones, or the most absurd ideas.
So you just think he's incompetent then?
Yes, he's really incompetent.
I see. And what about So what about this? What about Ferdinand Emmanuel Edrelin Marcos Senior? Ferdinand Marcos. Wasn't he an actual dictator? Do you see any connection between him and Caesar or anything that we've been talking about so far? Can you apply this to him and his presidency if you know anything, if you know enough about it?
This one is I really I don't know. I didn't talk much about these things, especially in our area, because there's just a lot of who resent Marcos for what he did. For example, the injustices during those time because of his dictatorship. That anyone that goes with his that condemn his ideas, or he just let them and just kill them or something. That's how the media portrays it that way for here. So I don't know which is true or which is not true. It seems that the media is only based on the wrong things that Marcos did. So I didn't say that I agree with what Marcos did. It's just I don't have a better understanding regarding this matter. I don't know where should I stand.
I see, and that makes sense. And it's tough to try to find to establish an individual, to develop an individual perspective on these things, because again, you have all these entities trying to influence you for different reasons. Whether it's to make money or it's to get you to pick their side over the other side, whatever. You don't know who to trust with this. You can't even come into it as a casual observer and be guaranteed to find an objective perspective, to gain an objective perspective on it. It takes time and it's difficult, and you got to weed through a lot of bullshit in order to get to the truth. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's I think that's politics pretty much everywhere. Even in the so-called well-adjusted countries like in Scandinavia or whatever, it's like politics are politics. It's just the corrupting influence of power and this obsession people have with power, and it's just this evolutionary need for dominance. I think is really what it comes down to, and we haven't moved past it yet. We haven't done enough to combat it. And I think that the best way to do it would be through education, just educating the somewhat just ignorant, uncritical masses. I don't want to be too derogatory when I say it, but it's true. They fuck up a lot of things for everybody else because they're so goddamn stupid sometimes, man. It's so frustrating. But yeah. I mean, I wish people would take the time to just take a little bit of time out of each of their every day. Just take a little bit of time every single day just to think about this stuff, to really think about it, just sit on it, put yourself in a quiet room, put on some classical music or something and just think. That's what more people need to do. There's not nearly enough of that that quiet time, alone time, that people don't do that enough. They kind of clutter their lives up with just a bunch of pointless bullshit, and that's what leads to all this nonsense. That's how these people in power, mess everybody over. I would say, if anything, I'm anti-authoritarianism, because I don't think anyone would agree that authoritarianism is a great thing. I think the world needs structure. I think it needs order, but I don't think it needs to be. I don't think people's lives, especially these days, we're not living in feudal. We're not living in feudal Europe anymore. There aren't. These aren't the days of kings and oh god, what are they called? Peasants, but not peasants, but laborers or serfs. This isn't a serfdom. You can actually do things, and you can actually elevate yourself through education and through opportunities and stuff. You don't have to. You're not born. You're not born. You don't get born. You're not. How should I say this? You're not. You don't live and die as what you are when you're born. You have options. You can be a millionaire if you want to. If you really want to, and you're smart enough for it, and you got what it takes, and you get the right opportunities and everything. Yeah, you could probably be a millionaire if you give it your all and you really care and you give a shit. There are resources in at least in a lot of parts of the world. Not all the parts of the world are like that still. I mean, there's Africa and there's South America. There's a lot of places that are still trying to figure their shit out. And the U.S. isn't perfect. No place is perfect. There's no one perfect country or anything. They say Norway and Sweden are like the happiest places on earth, but they've got immigration issues up the ass, and they're very small, and they've got huge taxes, and it's hard to live there because it's small, and you got population issues and everything. It's no place is perfect. Everyone's trying to paint themselves out to be, everyone's trying to paint a portrait. You try to make themselves look as best as they possibly can. You don't. Take some time to look into these things. Look at statistics, I would say. Look at the empirical data. And even then that can be slanted too. It's like how can you be guaranteed that that's actually whatever, any percentages and stuff, how can you be guaranteed that those are correct? This is all a long-winded tangent that I still think does tie into what Julius Caesar, some of the issues that Julius Caesar brings up, but let's try to rein it in. Let me rein it in back now. Let me rein it back in now, and we can talk more about the actual work itself. Is there anything you'd like to add to any of that, Simone, before I move on?
I don't know. I agree with you that we are lucky. We are the luckiest space in the history. I guess that the 21st century, the people in the 21st century, that we have tons of opportunities. So maybe we should find this opportunity, or we should use this to educate ourselves and don't just focus on one thing. I guess that to be able to grow as an individual, we should explore things. There's a lot of opportunities. It wasn't perfect, but at least there's something that you can find to improve yourself. So improve ourselves.
And so earlier I asked you, and exactly, yeah, self improvement is the key. But that's the solution to all of this. Everyone should work on themselves. That's really what it comes down to. Self-actualization, self-improvement, self-actualization, self-determination. You have a brain, use it. Use your sentience. We're not armadillos or something. We're not ants. We can actually think for ourselves. So do more of that. Do more. You have the resources. You have the internet. You have, well, maybe not everybody, but more people than ever. They have the resources by which they can, through which they can elevate themselves. So do it. Take advantage of those. Do what you can, do what you can do. Do what you can. Don't sit on your ass. Don't give up. Self-defeat is the worst. I think self-defeat, if we're going to get, self-defeat is the worst sin of all. And I'm not even saying that in a religious sense, but it's the worst thing a person can do to themselves and to everybody else around them, because it has consequences for everything. I think that's where a lot of the evil in modern life comes from. That from which it comes is from just defeatism. But anyway, let me ask you this now, Simone. So earlier I asked you, how you would personally define corruption in politics, and you said it had something to do with when a politician's or when a leader's individual needs or desires supersede the people's needs or the needs of the office. And well, what I want to know now is how would you personally define a tyrant? And you can use like Marcos or Duterte or whoever you want to as examples. That's perfectly fine. But I want to know how you would personally define a tyrant.
I think a tyrant is someone who wanted to control the people. I guess that we can say that I think a tyrant doesn't it only doesn't count on the bad one, or I guess that maybe we can I guess for me I can consider a tyrant is somebody that a dictator or something that he's or someone that someone who is controlling people to do what he wanted people to do, or his plans to just to execute his plan, whether it's good or bad. I guess that, but most of the times, tyrants when a good leaders doesn't seems like to be a tyrant at all, because they dwells on to execute their plans. They dwells on the more humane or morally accepted way. So we can say that they're no longer a tyrant, but in the sense that when we can say that a tyrant is someone that trying to control us, to manipulate us to do such thing. Someone who is pleasing us or just controlling us to do such thing, or which is normally is bad, that just to make his plans or what his desire to happen. It's just that he will do everything just to make us believe or do what he wanted to say, even though it's a morally unacceptable way.
Do you think Julius Caesar was a tyrant?
For me, I guess I didn't see him as a tyrant at all in the in the movie that we have seen. I guess that I don't know, I'm trying to look on more things about him. I wanted to see more scenes that why he is considered as a tyrant, because it seems like that the people around him just tell that he's a tyrant, and then they wanted to dethrone him or killed him. I guess that he has the ability. There's a probability that he'll become a tyrant, but in the movie itself, that in the parts that we have seen so far, that he hasn't been a tyrant. So there's only a possibility that he could be a tyrant. So that's what the reason why his friends assassinated him.
Yeah, and I think in the this is Shakespeare again. I think he is trying to be ambiguous in this sense because he's showing us by being ambiguous. He's showing us he's removing all sorts of distractions and everything, just like we did with Macbeth, taking out any sort of distractions and just focusing solely on how people in politics react to one another. That the world, the interactions within the world itself, how that works, and we see how that works here. We see people making excuses as to why they want to kill Caesar, and it doesn't matter. See, that's the thing. It doesn't really. I don't think it matters whether he's a tyrant or not. And this. By the way, this is the Shakespeare Caesar. This isn't the historical Caesar. This is the fictionalized Caesar. So here, Caesar, we don't know if he's good or bad. The only evidence we have is hearsay. It's other people talking about him. We're getting information from him fed, presented to us through biased filters. The only person when we hear about how he turns down the crown 3 times from Mark Antony, for example, the person who's telling that story doesn't seem to really like Caesar that much. He seems to have some disdain for him, and he's also telling this to someone that he knows has disdain for him, and that was, I believe that was Cassius, right? So, and Cassius ends up being one of the people who assassinates Caesar, halfway through the play. But he, we don't. The point that I think Shakespeare's trying to bring across, if he is trying to bring this across, or the point that I get anyway, is that Caesar. It doesn't matter if he's good or bad. What matters is that people will make excuses to get power. They will spin a story. They will make a narrative to for the sake of purely for the sake of the for the acquisition of power, for acquiring power, and that's what's going on here. They all with the exception of Brutus, it doesn't seem like any of the people who actually end up killing Caesar actually care about the really care. It seems, and especially Cassius. It seems like Cassius just doesn't like him. But even that's ambiguous too, because then at the end he does kill himself, and then that's also ambiguous. Is it like did he commit suicide for a noble purpose, or was he just a coward, or what? All of this is up for interpretation, but. Personally, I see Cassius as someone who just had a personal vendetta against Caesar. He had a personal disliking. It was subjective, whereas Brutus was a little more rational about it, but also a little more moral, and really did seem to have the Republic's best interests in mind when he did it. The other ones we don't really know too much about, but they just, for the most part, they seem like they were just kind of in on it, and they just kind of wanted to do it, And again, it comes down to this. It comes down to power, it seems, and what we see the steps. We see how these things develop. We see how military coups and despots, despositions or whatever, you kicking a throne, dethroning a king, how all of that comes into play, how these political machinations are born, the process through which they go to become fully realized. We're taking through the steps of that here. And I think that's what Shakespeare's trying to depict. He's trying to portray that through this particular play, How does it start? Where does it come from? What are the steps? And then what happens afterwards? That's basically what Julius Caesar as a play is. It takes you through all of that, and it ends. It ends. It's perfectly in line with that process. It ends with the fallout of what happens. The Roman Republic leads into the Roman Empire. Everyone who tried to, everyone who took out Caesar ends up dying themselves, and then new people get into power and. That's really it, It's just kind of it. At the end of the day, you look at it, when it's all said and done and the credits are rolling, you just go, huh? Well, politics as usual. Basically, that's this movie. I think in a nutshell, politics as usual. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Simone?
Yeah, it's just a representation of how backup is how politics can really corrupt us. I guess that that there's not much into it for when it comes to the character itself, that it doesn't have much that we can talk about compared to Hamlet and then Macbeth. This one is mostly talk about the political issues by those times, and we can also relate these political issues with the ones that we have today. So yeah, that
Right. Yeah. Because it's universal. So, but yeah, I would say we have to approach this differently because it's it's more conceptual, I would say. This one is it's honestly a more conceptual play. It's not necessarily, and I guess they all are to a certain extent. I guess all art is to a certain extent, but this one is meant to kind of portray it's like a thought experiment almost. You could think of it as that. It's more just like, here is a typical political coup. Here's some conflict. Here's someone who's supposed to be like a typical kind of political dictator or something, or a controversial political figure. A lot of, most political figures are controversial ones. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. But that's what this is. It's just a setup. It's just kind of, it's almost bland. It's almost generic in the sense that these characters could really be anything. They're all just, they're not really characters. They're characters, but they're not people. They play roles in this. They're just sort of, they are like chess pieces on a board that Shakespeare is trying to manipulate in order to tell a good story. Not only tell a good story, but also take the people through this process, process of the acquisition of power, of political machination, of politics, of playing the political game. That's really all this is. And so I don't think it really matters who Caesar is personality-wise. I don't think Shakespeare really cares about, what kind of cereal he eats in the morning, or how many times he goes to the bathroom throughout the day, in the course of a single day. It's not about that, whether he likes to wear slippers when he gets up out of bed in the morning, or if he just if he doesn't mind the cold floor, on his bare feet or whatever. All that shit, just his bare feet on the cold floor, whatever, all those things. That's not, you don't get that intimacy that you get with Hamlet or Macbeth, because they're different kinds of stories. So, and I the difference is good. It's good to have range. And Shakespeare, definitely out of all the people who have ever done anything artistic or creative in the world, he definitely has that range. But yeah, it's a very different kind of story. And I think it stands out among the works in his overall canon. I think it really, it sets out to do a completely different thing. And what that thing is, I think anyway, is to show us the other side of politics, really. Just to show us the other side of politics, the political process, I suppose. The real politics. You can get into like all the technical stuff about, how a bill gets passed into law and all that shit, but this is kind of, honestly, this is like the most honest kind of aspect of politics. The scheming, the lying, the scheming, the development of an image, the persuasion, the acquisition of influence, how to get influence, how to get people to want to be influenced by you. That aspect of it is there. And how to justify these power plays, I guess, and these chess moves, because it's all strategy. It comes down to a strategy. So that's what it's showing us. That's what it demonstrates. But now I guess let's just, because it is a vague play and everybody's opinion is different, let's just get into that. Let's explore some of the more, I guess, subjective aspects of this. So tell me, Simone, do you think Brutus was justified in killing Caesar?
I think he wanted to make something to for the betterment of the government of their government by those time.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, I should mention that he, in Pompeii, Caesar does at the beginning, he does get back from a military campaign against Pompey, but Pompey is Rome's their main political rival at that time. So whether that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing is up to you, and it's up in the air as well. We don't know, because the play doesn't give us that, because that doesn't matter. Those questions don't matter as much. I think we as viewers were kind of used to wanting those questions answered, but I think here Shakespeare, even back then, I think here Shakespeare is kind of forcing us to approach it from a different perspective, and in so doing, he's making us question why we even why we even want those questions answered all the time anyway, and really evaluate the whole thing. This is a call for a different, like an even broader form of introspection or analysis or critical, thinking or rationality or whatever you want to call it. But personally, do I think Brutus was justified in killing Caesar? The problem with these questions, I think, is that again, it's all so ambiguous that, and there's so much contradictory evidence within the play itself that I don't know if there really is a way to answer this. On it, I don't even know if I could subjectively answer it. So maybe it's not a good question to ask, because you know, Brutus, he kills him. He feels bad. We see that he feels bad, but then later he's haunted by the ghost, which comes with associations of guilt and everything. And Macbeth was haunted by a ghost too. Not that necessarily, not that not causation, whatever. A causes B, whatever. Logic shit. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. But yeah, that doesn't necessarily prove anything. But still, Brutus. I don't know, man. And did he kill himself because he wanted to be done to die as a hero? Was it a noble sacrifice or whatever, noble death, or did he just not want to have to deal with the consequences of a Mark Antony victory, which is what happens in the end anyway? But who knows? So maybe that's not a good question to ask. I'll ask the next one instead. Who do you think the protagonist of this story is, or does it even have a protagonist, Simone? Is there a main hero in this play?
I don't know if there's a hero in this play. We can consider Caesar that he's the hero, but he dies in the earlier part of the play, and we can also say that it could be Brutus if we will consider the mob or the people as the antagonists. We can say that Brutus is the protagonist, but I don't know. There's no for me. There's no clear evidence of who's the protagonist on this one. We can consider everyone as the antagonist of their own story.
So you think everyone's a bad guy? Do you think everyone's good or bad or neutral or something else? If you had to be general about it, let's say.
It depends upon the perspective that we're going to look at. Given that there's no such evidences that Julius Caesar is a tyrant, there we can see that there's no much evidences that it is only hearsays, and then it's just opinions of his friends that he's a tyrant. So we can say that it's a good person, that he just ends up the assassination happens because it's just his friends just wanted to, or someone wanted the throne or the power that he had, or yeah. But we can also say that Brutus is somehow a good person at some parts, that if we can consider the people as just what I said earlier, that the people is the antagonist, that the people just tempted or push Brutus to act that certain way, to be bad, or to do what all the mess that he has done. But to be honest, I don't know who's. That's what you say. This one is too ambiguous. There's not much evidences that we can say that who's good and who's. But I guess that we can say that for me, I guess that I'll just stand on the neutral part of who's good and who's bad. It's just I guess we can say that who's good and who's bad in this one is it's just a matter of perspective that you're going to look at.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's up to you as a person, as an individual viewer. And again, it depends on the production as well. Again, Shakespeare probably. I think part of the reason why he made it so ambiguous was also for a more practical theatrical reason. So that you could have different productions that focus on different things and approach it from different angles. But yeah, I think the core text itself, it is meant to simply show it's to take us through the process of like a political coup, a power upheaval, and how that gets started, what goes down when it actually happens, and then what happens after, what the consequences are. And sometimes they're not very good. When you make things unstable, it makes it unstable for everyone, including yourself. It kind of that instability applies to everybody. And I think that that's just it. He's just showing us that dynamic towards the end, and that's really the way I think about it. And I think again, I think that's what the ambiguity is. I think that's what that's for. That's what those blank spaces are. This is a different kind of play, and so maybe we're asking the wrong questions. Maybe I should have tried to think a little more about. I should have come up with a different set of questions for this. Maybe we're looking at it wrong, but I think looking at it as just a vague kind of political process here. This is how it works. Here, let me take you through the steps. I think that's probably the closest you'll get to having a correct interpretation of this play, I would say. I think that's the most accurate, maybe. But then again, maybe at the same time, it's the most accurate because it's also the most vague. So, the bigger the net is, the easier it is, the more you'll catch. Maybe that's the downside of making that argument of that particular perspective. But, I don't know. But yeah, so how about this one? Okay, this one might be one that we could debate a little bit. Who do you think the worst traitor to Caesar was? Was it Brutus for killing Caesar, like actually like stabbing him to death, or was it Mark Antony for literally using his corpse as a way to curry the favor of the multitude and thereby advance himself politically? Was it Brutus for killing Caesar, or was it Mark Antony for parading Caesar's corpse around for his own personal benefit?
I guess it's Mark Antony that I guess this is more evil. I guess that I thought at first he will clear Julius Caesar's name, but in the end he just used it for his own benefits. I guess that in the character of Brutus, we can say that it's obvious that all he wanted is it's power. It's obvious that he has a bad intention at all in the first place. But Antony, yes, it seems that we can in the first place that he's just having sympathy, or he's the best friend of he's the good guy, or it seems like he's acting the good guy towards Julius Caesar as he's a real friend of him or something. But it turns out that it's just an act or something just to make to make his plans work. So I think that he's more evil.
Evil, or is it the case that just like how they say all's fair in love and war, is all fair in politics? Is he evil, or is he just trying to get power like everyone else in politics? Maybe all's fair, or rather all's unfair in politics. What do you think?
We can say that he's evil, but I guess that we can also say that he just grabbed the opportunity because it's just lying in front of him. So why not just grab the opportunity to get the power? Because it seems that he didn't plan these things at all. It just comes in front of him. So that's why when he realizes that the power is just hanging, it's just in front of me, and I just need to do something bad for my friend, and I can get the power. It's not just much effort at all. Just like Brutus did. So maybe it just he became bad. I guess that because the opportunity just pops in front of him, so he just grabbed this.
Yeah, I see it as an important distinction between amorality and immorality. Being amoral is to be devoid of moral principles altogether. So you're not necessarily neutral, but you're just not even thinking about that at all. It's not a moral consideration. I wouldn't say that this play, for example, is a moral play. None of the characters here are moral. They're amoral, generally speaking. And even when they are moral, they seem to be vaguely moral. Like Brutus never really seems to be sure of himself. His idea of his conception of a perfect Roman Republic always seems to be vague, always ever in the distance. It's not, it's too far away, and and that's different. Amorality, the lack of morals, is different from immorality, which is deliberately going out of your way to do bad. I think the distinction here is that these politicians and everything, they just don't care, and that's still bad. Like, they're both bad things. Being amoral and being immoral are still negatives. Those are negative traits to have, but it's different. It's a different brand of bad, and I think that distinction is important is worth noting, and I think Shakespeare really emphasizes that in this particular play. But yeah, to tie that in, so to try to connect this to some of the other Shakespeare plays. I know that this isn't really the same kind of thing. It's like trying to compare apples and oranges, but let's give it a shot. What I want to ask you, Simone, is what do you think the significance of Caesar's ghost is? Is it real, or is it just a manifestation of Brutus's guilt? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, but I guess it's just a manifestation of Brutus' guilt. Uh, we can say that, for example, in Macbeth, that it's just a manifestation of what he did, or something bad that he has done. I guess that it's just maybe they portrayed, or Shakespeare just try to show up makes the apparition or the ghost appear, because it's easier for us to understand that what this character are suffering into, or what's the reason why they're acting this way. So maybe it's an important element for us to understand that we can see that the manifestation of their what he's done. I guess that it is important for us to see what's the reason why they're acting this way, or something. That is it that they really they're guilty, or they really wanted to face what they have done, or or to feel human at all, to what they have done. Yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. To feel human. But so let me ask you this now. Do you think it's Do you see it as more when Brutus kills Caesar? Do you see it more as him betraying a friend, or more as him doing what's necessary in order to preserve the political sanctity of the republic?
We can say that it's a betrayal of a friend, but it seems that he doesn't plan in the first place. That he doesn't plan this thing. That it's just perhaps in front of him, this opportunity or chance for him uh to get the power. I guess that I know he doesn't. For me, he doesn't betray his friend at all, because for me to betray his friend, I guess that he needs to plan everything in the first place. He doesn't want to betray his friend, but he doesn't also want to pull the power of to rule the their society or their kingdom to Brutus, or he sees this as an opportunity to turn the tables, or to make things better. So that's why he grabbed this opportunity.
And what would you do if you were in Brutus's position?
In Brutus' position, I guess that I don't know what should I do. I guess that maybe I'll be knowing that I'm in the same situation. Uh, I can knowing that I'm in this, maybe from in the beginning, if I'm really a friend of um of Julius Caesar, I will not let this hearsay of other people affects me as a friend of him. Or maybe it just seems like that. I don't know if we really say that it's Brutus at all. Based on my understanding in the play that we have just watched, that it's what's his name? Wait, let me check. Um, it's Cautious that 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 affected him, or something that triggers him to set all these plans at all. It seems that in the first place he doesn't really care at all, or he cares at all about the power that it will falls into Caesar's hand, but it seems that Cassius has more says about these things, and then he just tempted, or he just pushes or triggers the underlying things that or the uncertainties that Brutus is feeling. So yeah, maybe I will not listen to Cautious in the first place, so that these things will not get into this, or will not turns up this wars.
So on that same token, do you think that Cassius is a villain, or does he really care about the Republic? Is he good or bad or neither or what? And also, do you think that his reasons for killing Caesar were more personal than he claims they were? Do you think he really cared about the Republic, or do you think he just had a personal vendetta against Caesar for some reason that we just don't know about? What are your thoughts regarding all of that?
We can say yes. I guess that it seems like they're more on the given that all these things it's not proven, that it's not a fact that 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 Julius Caesar is really a tyrant. I guess that everything that all the accusation about him is just hearsay. So maybe there's someone behind it that that wanted the power, or yeah. We can say that it's cautious. We can say that he's evil, but also in the part that he wanted the power, or it seems that he really wanted the power in the first place. That he resulted on making some hearsay accusation about Julius Caesar. But we can also say that that's how does the society really works. I guess that things that we didn't understand at all, or things that we didn't agree with, is just it just it just it just tempts us, or triggers us to do something bad, or yeah, to seek more, or things that we, in our perspective, that it's not it's not right for us. We try to do things on our own, or put the justice system or on our hands, or the power.
Yeah, right, exactly. And well, now let me ask you this. So, do you think? I would say personally, from a dramatic or like theatrical, or no, dramatic or like storytelling perspective, Brutus is probably the protagonist of this particular play. So let me ask you this, Simone. How is Brutus similar to Hamlet and to Hamlet? How is Brutus similar to Hamlet, and how is he different? What are your thoughts on that?
We can say that he's similar to Hamlet, because, for example, in the Hamlet, he first listened. It all started because he listened to the ghost, or the manifestation of his father, or that's how does the cycle of revenge really started in Hamlet. We're not sure about that, if the ghost is really true, or it's just his own his product of his own imagination, of to let us to have us the idea of what's the reason for his revenge. Yeah, it's similar that Brutus. We can say, oh, I agree with you that we can say that he's also the protagonist of this one, of the display. And the similarities between them is just there's something that triggers them to do what they wanted to do. It seems like that they wanted to do something to make things better, but they just resort on things that make things worse. I guess that they could resort to things that will really make things better. I guess an easier, a harder, a more humane or morally accepted way to change things, but they rely on the negative or bad thing.
So
That's the similarities that I can see, but in the end, it turns out that um, Hamlet is there's a story about him that he's good at the end. We can say that he's a real villain. I guess that he's a villain that he's not just a villain for the negativities that or the pessimistic aspect or he just wanted revenge. There's a reason why he wanted to do such thing. But in in Brutus character, there's something that he wanted to do, but it's not just as big deal as Hamlet for me.
and so then let's say structurally, dramatically, they both have a call to action, and they both have a tragic fall. Let's say, um, but then you think they're different. What? So just to clarify, can would you mind restating for the audience why what you think about them is different? What's the major difference between Brutus and Hamlet? Just to refine that part of your argument.
Um, can you repeat the
Yeah, sure. So
the
just for the sake of refinement or whatever, just clarification. What do you think the main difference between Brutus and Hamlet is? To get your perspective on that.
I guess the reason why they're doing such things, I guess Hamlet is just more personal. It's more personal. That's why he's really doing this. The reason that he wanted revenge, and then Brutus wanted to do something to change the. It's not more. I think it's not personal at all. It's just it just that some people just some of his friends affected him to do what he wanted to, or a call for him to change the or to get the power to make things better.
And then how would you compare Brutus to Macbeth?
We can compare him about for example, the part that we're on the manifestation of their when they killed something and then where they killed someone important to them or related to them, and it just shows up to them. We can relate that we can say that it affected them to think more or to introspect about the situation that or such scenes that they have done, something like that. But what makes them different is that it seems that Macbeth doesn't feel regret at all, or he doesn't seems that he regret what he's done, or he just he realized that he killed somebody, he did something bad, but it seems that it doesn't stop him from doing bad at all. But in the character of Brutus, we can say that he realizes that what he's done wrong, and he's willing to. He really regrets what he's done, and he resort to doing suicide.
Right, yeah, killing himself to numb the pain or to end the pain just because he's fucked himself over. Yeah, so to answer all those questions, I would say, what do I think of the significance of Caesar's ghost to go all the way back there? I would say yes, it's just a manifestation of Brutus's guilt because it doesn't seem as if it really, unlike in Hamlet, there aren't multiple people who bear witness to the ghostly visage of Caesar. It's just all it all seems to be in his head. It all seems to just be a nice little a convenient little just not necessarily convenient in a derogatory way, but just a nice little let's say visual metaphor for his guilt. That's really all it comes down to, and it's very iconic, but that's really all it is. It's more functional in this. It's more just a way, a narrative, an element of the narrative or the structure or the drama, I suppose. Just a dramatic element, just a component rather, a component. part of what makes up the magic of art, I guess. Maybe just another working part of art. But with relation to comparing Brutus with Hamlet, it's a tough one. Again, the problem with Brutus is that he is really vague. The only thing about him is there really isn't much of a character to him besides the fact that he feels a bit of guilt at having killed his friend Caesar. But we don't know the relationship he had with Caesar. Kind of like how we don't know the relationship Hamlet had with King Hamlet. But the difference there is that one focuses more on the personality, the personal. There's a personal side to the Hamlet play, and to Hamlet himself. We focus on who he is as a person. Whereas with Brutus, he serves a function here. He's the one who betrays his friend. He's the great betrayer. He is the Judas of this particular scenario. He is that's it. He's just the traitor. And then he feels bad about it. And then he loses anyway. And then he dies. And it's sort of, he feels like it's his fate. Is it? Doesn't really matter. It doesn't seem like we have enough information anyway to say one way or the other. So that's not really, that's not the direction we should approach it in. Again, at the end of the day, this play is very broad, and so you have to approach it broadly, and you can't really dip into it too deeply. So I would say, unfortunately, I honestly can't really compare him to either Hamlet or Macbeth, because he's not really something. That's not the way to do it. He's not a comparative kind of character. It's apples and oranges. It really is, because he's not really a character. He's a character, but in a different sense. He's a pawn in on a chessboard. That's all he is. He's not a. And I guess that to a certain extent all characters are like that, but he hasn't been imbued with any sense of life, or at least not to the same degree that Hamlet or Macbeth have been. And so it's hard to talk about that. But I guess if you're going to look at them all in like the broadest possible sense, but see, I don't know if you should do that. I don't know if I would even entertain the possibility of doing that, because I feel like that's just not the right road to go down. That's just my opinion, but See, it's tough because nothing immediately comes to mind, and I don't know. I don't think it's really worth getting into. I think it's sort of an intellectual roadblock at that point. So I think for the sake of in the fact that we are almost we are an hour and 40 minutes into this podcast episode, I think I'll just forego answering those last two questions. I won't make comparisons just because I don't think you really need to. But now that we are approaching the end, Simone, I'd like to give you this time now to just say anything you wanted to say. If you have any questions you want to bring to the discussion, take the time to ask them now, and we'll get into them. But the floor is yours. Go ahead. Anything you want to say before we do the Would You Rather and end this episode. Now's your time. So go for it.
Yeah, I agree with you with that. With the last one that you said, that there's not much into what you say. It says Brutus' character is it's vague. We can compare it actually to get more to understand more his character. It's not similar with Hamlet nor Macbeth. That if we compare them, we get into something conclusion that we get into more into their characters. We can understand more their characters, but here, when we compare Brutus to them, it seems like that it doesn't really matter at all. That we can come up with the same ideas that we have. We got when we compared Macbeth and Hamlet. That it's just something that when in the previous episodes that we compare Macbeth and Hamlet, it's just there's something that we get into appreciate more about these characters, or there's something that underlying message that we get into, or we understand more about their characters, that we appreciate them, that we can just we realize that we can just we can just understand the character on our own, that by their own, that it's important to compare them to each other to get the underlying message, or to dive into their character. It seems like that when we compare Brutus to them, it's just there's not much evidences that we can use to to get into other conclusion regarding his character. It's just as we say, it's ambiguous and vague.
Right, yeah, and exactly, and that's just because they're trying to do different things. Shakespeare's doing different things with them. Brutus just doesn't have that third dimension the way that Hamlet and Macbeth do, because his story isn't exactly, it's not a character-oriented story. It's not character-driven necessarily. The characters, if they're much looser. They're in the term character in the play Julius Caesar, it's much looser, it's much broader, it's much more. I hate to use this term so much, but vague. It's much vaguer, because they're just there to serve their purposes within the narrative, to convey this political process, the politics, the politics of politics, really. That's all Julius Caesar the play is, really. It's just the politics of politics. But with that being said, let's do a would you rather. Let's close off. We close off every episode with a would you rather to give us a bit of a break from all the Shakespeare analysis and stuff. Something a little fun. And speaking of breaks, we will be taking a break after this episode from Shakespeare, just for a bit to cover something a little more fun. Just we need I don't know about you, Simone, but I need a bit of a brain break. I don't want to get intellectual fatigue. I want to watch something fun for just take a break, take my mind off it, because I feel like if we try to do it all at once, we might get sick of it, and I just don't want that to happen. So just as a precaution and for my own sake, I think it would be better to do something a little more entertaining, a little more lighthearted, a little more commonplace, not in the same caliber as Shakespeare, just something a little easier, I suppose. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with you. That it seems like that to get into to more of the Shakespeare work, I guess we need to take a break regarding this one. It seems like that in the previous episode that we did, it seems like that we really need to take a break to cool things up. That to make this episode much more to get more understanding for the future works that we're going to examine. Like it would be helpful for us, and not only for us, it will be also good for our audience.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's just beneficial for everyone on all sides. So now answer me this, Simone. Let's do our would you rather. Would you rather move to a new city or town every week? All right, so that's your first option. Moving to a new city or a town every week. Or would you rather never be able to leave the city or town you were born in? So your options here are to always be moving or to never move at all. What are your thoughts?
For me, I choose the just move. I guess move into a different city every week. I guess that I don't know if there's a significant thing to just stay in my place or the place where I grew up, because there's not much this place to offer. I guess that if it has or a complete package, or the amenities or the facilities that I need, or the establishments that I need, maybe I can stay here. But given that it wasn't the place that will really help you to grow, I guess that to get more experience, to get you in the full experience of life. So maybe I'll choose the move into a different cities every week. I guess that different you can learn tons of things from it. That a different culture, a different people that you can talk to. I guess that maybe you can find some good place to go to. For example, the libraries, or some place where you can do some leisures. Yeah, I think that moving to a different city every week is much way better to grow as an individual and to enjoy life.
Yeah, and I would say the exact same thing too, because I love travel, and I think travel makes you different. It gives you perspective, and being able to travel every week, it would to leave to some other place, every other week, every week. I mean, it would give you that perfect opportunity. I would take that in a heartbeat. That's a plus for me. I don't have much that I need to move around physically. As long as I have like a backpack with some books in it or whatever, I'm kind of set. And a journal maybe to write in, maybe a laptop. But even that I don't really need. I can just kind of go for the experience. That's really all there is to it, and I would definitely go for that. That's a plus for me, honestly, man. I would love to be forced to travel every week. Basically, I wouldn't mind that at all. But anyway, so with that being said, that leads us to the end of which episode is this? Episode 12, the dozenth episode of the Imperial Tides podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed. I've been your host Holden, and I was here with my co-host Simone. If you liked the video, please do remember to drop a thumbs up, subscribe for more content. We upload new videos every week. Comment in the comment section below. Just make sure that it's civil. Don't turn this into I know YouTube is technically a social media platform, but don't be, don't be one of those folk. Think before you speak or write or whatever. Just don't be an asshole. Basically, is the only rule with that. We will be taking a slight break from Shakespeare, but we'll be right back on it very soon. We're just going to maybe take time to cover like maybe 2 or 3 fun movies and then get back to business. It's a shame that, it's kind of a shame that we couldn't do 10, because right now we've done 9 Shakespeare works. It's a shame that we couldn't do 10, but there are 44 in all, so we're way off we're nowhere near finished. We're nowhere near complete yet, so I'm not worried too much about it. Simone, last chance to say anything. Is there anything you want to close out with? I mean, we're right at the end, so anything you want to say at all, feel free.
Yeah, there's tons of Shakespeare's work that we need that we can picture in the future or make a review about them. But for the meantime, I guess that for the sake of everyone to make things better, I guess that we need to take a break. It will be beneficial for us and also to our audiences. So I guess that maybe after this one, after this we're taking the break, things will be a lot more better. I guess that we can see we will be ready to face the new other Shakespearean works and to appreciate them.
This has been the Imperial Tides podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.